Roger. Great shot under the engine bay there. 33 engines. All of those inner ones, the 13 inner ones especially, need to be performing beautifully for this landing. Cheers are erupting from around SpaceX. Down under the 1 minute mark.
And thank you for joining us, Marcus. Just so everyone knows, we lost power at our viewing site. So it's Marcus and myself now providing commentary with 30 seconds to go.
Hey, happy to be here. Down under 20 seconds, come on. I'm actually going to try to be fairly quiet so you can take all this in. Can't guarantee that. Go, baby. Yes!
"30 seconds into the..."
Beautiful engines.
It's going to be completely behind real time.
Altitude 5 kilometers, speed 950 kilometers an hour. T plus 1 minute, altitude 9 kilometers, speed 1200 kilometers an hour. All engines are burning. Altitude 14 kilometers, 1500 kilometers an hour, T plus 120.
So Ezra, when we switch over to SpaceX,
Altitude 22 kilometers, speed 2100
Oh, wow.
an hour.
Wow.
T plus. Stand by for hot staging. 36 kilometers altitude, 3300 kilometers an hour, T plus 2 minutes. Stand by for hot staging. 53 kilometers up, 4600 kilometers.
Come on.
230.
Beautiful.
Hot staging. 64 kilometers up, 5200 kilometers an hour.
directors go for booster return.
Oh my gosh.
And we
Good for
did
tower.
hear that the tower is go for catch, so that was one of the big criteria we were looking for.
This view
We'll
here.
wait to hear that the go for catch has been sent.
Beautiful view here from the ship.
And so exciting to hear that we got a go for booster catch. That means it's going to be a really exciting morning. Again, the booster is making its way back towards now land in order to make that catch attempt in the tower.
So incredible to see these views. You can see the ship on the right-hand side of your screen. All 6 Raptor engines are under full power. Once again, the booster is making its way back to the launch site. We are going to try and catch it using the chopsticks on the launch tower, the exact same tower that it just launched from just, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and the booster.
Starship on nominal
Guys,
trajectory.
I can confirm the command was sent for
This is
the booster
amazing.
to come back.
That is
So I'm
incredible
looking
news.
up right now. It's pretty much right overhead of us, and we can see it starting to come down.
I can't wait for us to hear the sonic boom through Dan's mic.
Right.
That is going to be incredible. It was so cool to hear the liftoff. And so once again, a successful on-time liftoff of Starship Flight 5. The ship has separated from the booster. The booster is there on your screen. It is making its way back to the launch site. We are going to attempt the catch using the chopsticks. We did hear the confirmation that the command was sent to the tower. We are go for catch.
And in order to.
And guys, we should just be about 30 seconds away from our landing burn.
Oh,
It's going to
wow.
happen in 3 phases.
Look at
We're going
this.
to let 13 engines burn off all of that velocity. Oh, we can see it coming down through the plume.
Booster coming in hot for booster catch.
We're going to ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now. You can see how fast this vehicle is moving
All
on the
13.
left-hand
Go, go, go.
Landing burn
3.
has been ignited.
Oh
We're
my
now down
god.
to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now in view.
Are you kidding me? Oh my god.
Booster landing burn shutdown.
Make a villain
What?
top booster.
This is absolutely insane. On the first ever attempt, we have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster back at the launch tower.
What an incredible view!
Are you kidding me?
Dan,
Wow.
I don't know about you, but we're losing our stuff up
Starship
here.
is turbo bed.
Guys, I'm sorry. Like, even in this day and age, what we just saw, that looked like magic.
What?
That
Oh,
was-
wow.
Dan,
Wow.
your view must have been insane. We are still going wild over here over this.
Folks, this is a day for the engineering history books. This is a live view of the Super Heavy booster as it has just been successfully caught back at the very same launch tower that it just came from. Dan, I love this. You
That's
are
the most
reflecting
amazing thing
exactly
I've ever
what
seen.
everybody else here in Hawthorne, except maybe a little bit more because you got to see it with your own eyes.
How was that?
Ship
We
windows
got
cut
it.
off.
I mean, like, I can't even describe that. Oh, by the way, main engine cut off, ship's in orbit, but I am like shaking right now.
Yeah, this is not,
Yeah,
I mean,
let's check in on Ship.
it's hard to believe that.
Starship nominal orbit insertion.
All right, exciting news there. It's hard to believe that, booster isn't the only excitement that we have today. Just confirmation there. A gorgeous view of planet Earth behind the ship.
Absolutely speechless.
And it is now in the orbit that we expected it to. This is just an incredible day. Live
Never seen
views
anything
there.
like it. I don't even know what to
Booster
say.
vents, some pressures there. That is a live view from the top of the tower looking at the chopsticks.
I am still in disbelief. I'm trying to catch my tears just like the chopsticks caught the booster. It has been nonstop since liftoff. And we are all so excited about everything that's been happening so far this morning. With the booster having completed its job for today, we are going to take a short break for the next 30 minutes. We'll return back at...
Oh yeah, Will, the sonic boom was definitely more audible than a Falcon 9 booster return. I was bracing for it because we could see, obviously I knew it was going to be loud because this is so much bigger than a Falcon 9, but we could actually see the shockwave as it was coming in during the landing burn, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a huge sonic boom, and it did not disappoint.
No, it was maybe a little bit tricky to track from our vantage point. It almost went up in basically it felt like a straight up trajectory from where we're watching. Of course, the path was going out due east over the Gulf of Mexico. But Marcus House, want to bring you in here. Moment of the mission.
I just don't even know what to say. I just don't even know what to say. I cannot believe that they just did it. The very last hard angle just before it hits the sticks, like, oh geez, that looks close, but it was just perfect. It was just perfect. I'm just absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely sure there will be a lot of things that SpaceX will. Sorry, say that again, Marcus.
Oh, I'm just absolutely knocked by it. Like it's like a dream to see that happen. We've been sort of wanting to see this for years now, and I never really thought that they would get all the way through every abort mode. So it's extraordinary to see, and of course, given that they've just succeeded with this, right? Flight 6 is the same sort of profile unless they change something at this point, so they can fly Flight 6 again. They could probably take this booster and static fire it and see if there's anything broken. Like, how amazing to be able to see this. And anybody that doubts what SpaceX can do, you see an event like this, there is absolutely nothing that stops them. Yep, they have setbacks like anyone else, but that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. 70 meters tall that booster is, 9 meters wide, just caught out of the air. First attempt, smooth as butter.
And I think that all just plays back to SpaceX's heritage with its own flight hardware. I mean, the number of times that we've seen both drone ship landings, return to landing site operations, again and again, hundreds of times now at this point with the Falcon 9 rocket. Obviously, two separate programs, but one very much learned some key lessons from the other, and it all played into what we see now here with the chopsticks seeming to have a very firm grasp on the super heavy booster here. Of course, it's still
man, I gotta almost
very much
watch
ongoing.
a replay of it.
Yeah, no, we'll see if we can hopefully get that and work to show a replay in just a moment here. Do want to note that, of course, while sort of the marquee excitement of the mission is now in the rearview mirror, and of course will be watched with great interest to see what all the lessons were from this moment. Do want to note that we are T plus 13 minutes 44 seconds and counting into this flight so far. At this point, the Starship upper stage is continuing to cruise. You see that live in the right hand of the two boxes in the split screen from the SpaceX feed here. Coming up at T plus 48 minutes and 3 seconds, the Starship entry will begin. And that'll be the next really big point in time for SpaceX, as they're going to see how well the heat shield tiles that were replaced and firmed up will certainly be at this point. Taking a look now at the live feed here, you can see some of the new camera angles, Marcus, that we were talking about seeing on the Starship. This looks like the opposite side of one of the flaps that we were seeing from the first flighter. Maybe not the opposite side in full, but certainly a very different angle. You can really get a good sense of that full flap in that shot we were just seeing.
Yeah, certainly a different angle. The other one was sort of just slightly underneath. A shot of the booster closed up on the chopstick arms there before, and you could sort of see discoloration in the steel. So, you know, from the heat, it's like, wow, that's just some of those small details. You could sort of dive in and investigate those for hours and sort of see all the new views that we've never been able to see before. We could spend days digesting just the shots of the booster as it's sitting there. It's really mind-blowing. I really... It gives you this confidence in what it is that they're doing, for sure. Like, you know, catching the booster out of the air. Even I said that was crazy. When they first announced that, I said, there's no way they're going to do that. It's just a stupid idea. It's not a stupid idea. They just did it. And, you know, for all the people that love to hate on what SpaceX are doing, you know, this is it's a world-changing event to be able to go to a fully reusable system like this. And, you know, if they can nail the Starship entry and catch that as well, which is what they aim to do, and as of right now, I don't see any reason why not. You know, the cost of mass orbit becomes tiny compared to what it is now, and we can really finally become a spacefaring species, a proper spacefaring species. And this is why we dream of it, right? You know, we can have space stations, we can have asteroid mining, lots of robotic, artificial intelligence-driven systems that can go out and mine resources. Who knows what's possible if we can just bring the cost down? And that's not even scratching the surface of it. Obviously, there's the Artemis missions, there's the missions to Mars that we dream of, which are further down the track. But, you know, these systems are just incredible. And when people say, no, look, they're not going to land a Starship on Mars, that's crazy talk. This was crazy talk. This was crazy talk 10 minutes ago. This was crazy talk. So just put it into perspective. Those people out there that, you know, that love to hate on this stuff, there's plenty of people out there like it. So thrilled to be part of a community that loves this so much. Best community I've ever been involved with in my entire life. And we've just seen literal, you know, the start of history right here. Really amazing.
And it is horrible to be witness to moments like this, and certainly I know I think I can speak for both Marcus and Stephen that, you know, we're all very appreciative that we are in a position to be here with you all live and seeing this, you know, chapter in space history as Marcus was just so eloquently describing. And Marcus, you wanted to see the replay. We do have that replay ready for you. So let's go ahead and check in with that. This is from our colleague Adam Bernstein, his camera, while the reentry of the booster from a vantage point in South Island. So it'll have a nice arc as it come back through and makes its turn to being caught at the chopsticks. As we're watching this, Marcus, you know, one of the sort of interesting things about this moment, besides the obvious, is, you know, SpaceX was able to see the aft end, or a good chunk of the aft end of the Flight 4 booster from the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and now to be able to have that as a side-by-side comparison with flight hardware that didn't have to suffer going through, you know, corrosive ocean water and in the water of the Gulf of Mexico, and to be able to do a one-to-one comparison between that and this, what you're seeing here,
Just
I
look
think
at that.
that's going to be
amazing.
a very valuable data set for SpaceX.
Yeah. These views are going to be shared around the world, and that's why it's so important for Lab Padre cameras, everybody else that's got live cameras out there, to have all different angles of this stuff. Because look at that, the angle that SpaceX showed of that looked a bit more steep. It looked a little bit more scary on the SpaceX feed, but right there it just looked perfect, just perfect. And even like the engine cut off, the flames and stuff, they seem to dissipate fairly quickly. At first, I was like, oh, hopefully it'll all settle down there. The flames that sort of came out afterwards. But it's hard to see how that could have gone better. I was trying to rewind there to see if the pins were sitting exactly on the chopstick arms where they needed to be for it to be reeled in, because they've got the special rails on the side there that move back and forth with this. Almost looks like this colossal big long drill bit. And I couldn't quite tell if it was sitting on there perfectly, but I think it was.
Yeah, it seemed to touch down or be caught where SpaceX was intending it to, right where it's being held. The additional interesting bits of data, as you mentioned, Marcus, you could spend hours going over the visual pieces of data that are available about the booster that's just being suspended in midair. One of which that I'm very curious to see, and I'm sure SpaceX is as well, if they don't already have good camera views there, is if there may have been any compression of the super heavy booster itself, where the chopsticks are holding it right now. If they, as they were testing it previously, used exactly the right amount of pressure to catch it and hold it in place, but not too much to squish part of the super heavy booster. I think that's going to be something they're keen to get their eyes on, especially once it's safe to approach the vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to say, the views, I mean, we've kind of forgotten about the Starship to a degree. The views from Starship right now are the best I've ever seen. The views of the globe, I wonder if they've got a wider angle lens on this. I'll have to go and check the previous feeds. The pale blue dot there below, seen from close up, is just breathtaking. Just breathtaking. And, how anyone cannot be inspired by this, I've got no idea.
I mean, certainly from a group of people who grew up as space fans, it's hard to fathom that you could watch something like this and not just think about all the things that are possible. Certainly, not everyone will go into aerospace engineering. Not everyone will be involved in the space program in one shape or form. But it does certainly spark the imagination of just thinking about what folks may have said is impossible for whatever rhyme or reason, and looking at a moment like this and thinking, well, maybe it just takes a little bit of extra elbow grease, a little bit of creative thinking, and there are a lot of problems that seem impossible to solve that, when you have moments like this, seem just a little bit closer to being reached.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little choked up there when it actually caught, and you could tell that it was going to hold. It's like, wow, that's... I really didn't expect it. I thought maybe there'd be an abort mode that would trigger before that. Everything had to have gone absolutely perfect. There's 1,000 things there that could have gone wrong at any point to abort that. So it seemed much more likely that it would sort of ditch just off site somewhere right at the end. But everything was just textbook. It looked like they'd done this 100 times before. This is I don't know what everybody else out there thinks. Those in the comments, like, it's a little hard to not be a bit choked up by that, and for us to be here watching it live. Most people will sort of see this on the news tomorrow, and I don't think any news organisation this time can put any negative spin on this. And what you sort of feel is this sense that, hey, we've just all collectively together, the 55,000 watching here on the space flight now side and thousands more on the lab side, we've just witnessed something truly incredible together that's never been done before. And I think that's something, like, we're all got to go and have a drink after this, right? It's just one of those things. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget what the year was. And I think this milestone here, on top of any milestone that's been achieved before, we've seen amazing things with Starships landing in their test flights early on, but nothing this crazy. And this really, when you see Starship up there orbiting around right now, you know, this is a commonplace thing. We're going to see this weekly, daily, even in the more distant future. And to think that's the future that we're going for is something extraordinary.
As we're continuing to watch this booster just hang in suspended air, which is still quite a remarkable thing, just sitting 4 miles away from this piece of hardware that's just gone to space and back and is now just hanging out right now. Do want to go to a close-up replay of the booster return. This coming courtesy of one of Lab Padre's live cameras that is available 24/7. You can see just, my goodness, this video as it comes back in. Stephen, if you're watching just from this angle, just how clean that reentry was, and
just that last touch, like you just see it descend a little just at the end there. That must be the arms just taking that impact, because they've got sort of a meter, or I forget what it is now, a meter or two, almost 2 meters of give in them. So that little last,
we're just watching
bit that you see it come down.
Taking a look at another pass through here. Just watching this a little more closely again this time. As you can see, it hovers for a second. It looks like the chopsticks didn't have to actuate too much. That it was obviously they had already come in from the separation they were at when the rocket launched, but that they were pretty close to, at least from this just immediate replay from this camera perspective, pretty close to where they wanted to have it. So that just speaks even more to the precision of where the super heavy booster was coming back through, right, Stephen? I mean, is that kind of your read of it as well?
Well, Bill Gerstenmaier from SpaceX mentioned the other day that the water landing they did on Flight 4, they had a 0.5 centimeter accuracy, which really was almost too good to believe. But Gerstenmaier knows what he's talking about, and I take him at his word that they had that amount of precision, and it's hard to argue with the result today.
Yeah, just that sort of level of pristine accuracy that he mentioned when he was speaking before the National Academies, obviously talking in greater context of the science that SpaceX will help assist with its, Falcon family of rockets through its Dragon capsule, both in free flying missions as well as going to the International Space Station. But also, was asked about, the odds of how well this would work, and what Stephen just said, within a couple centimeters of accuracy from where they thought they were going to land in the Gulf of Mexico last time. I mean, that clearly gave them great confidence to go for it again here, and has so far proved out. Now, of course, one other thing that we'll continue to watch as this mission goes on, we're currently T plus 27 minutes, 52 seconds and counting. Got about a little more than 20 minutes from the start of Starship's entry here. So we've got a little more time to talk about the mission up to this point. Will be good to watch the ongoing performance of the chopsticks now at this point, continuing to super heavy boost, having through the catch sequence to see if there's potential structural issues that make first SpaceX certainly doesn't intend for there to be, and likely would not have made this launch attempt or this catch attempt if they thought that was a possibility. But given this is the first time, and with any first time attempt of anything, there are lessons to be learned, and things can come up. So we'll keep our eyes and cameras trained on the super heavy booster and the chopsticks holding it upright. SpaceX will also have to safe the vehicle before crews are able to move in, and the road back to the orbital launch mount is reopened to even to SpaceX employees, but certainly back to the public. And so that process will involve, of course, offloading any remaining propellant that is still on there, letting that vent or boil off in a safe manner is going to be a really important safety component of this stage of flight. They want to make sure that, as has been the case with everything up to now, that they do that in a manner that protects not only SpaceX employees and the public writ large, but also all of the launch infrastructure there at the pad. Marcus, from your gauge, how long do you think safing the booster might take at this point? I mean, sort of given what we know about, how much propellant the Super Heavy booster used last time was going to use this time. It's kind of your read
I'm
of
trying
that.
to sort of gauge how much propellant is left in it. I mean, they obviously didn't burn every single last bit of it because they would have had margin. So there's, based on the frost, there's a little bit in there. I would guess they probably, just to keep it safe, they probably just want to let it vent off, maybe. Which would take quite a while. So I don't know. Would they bring it down and let it vent off the ground, or is it better to let it vent up in the air? If there's any mishaps or anything, it's probably best for there to be lots of circulation and higher breezes up there. So maybe it's best just to kind of maybe wheel it in closer to the tower, because they can sort of move it to a degree and then let it vent off. I'm open to other people's comments on that though, because we are in absolute speculative territory at this point. We've never seen this.
Yeah, Stephen, if you want to weigh in on, your thoughts about what happens now at the Super Heavy booster and the possible or probable timeline for being able to safe it. I mean, we've heard anywhere from, a few hours to, depending on how this went today. Obviously, we talked to folks before this launch, before the catch, but, could take the majority of today, possibly into tomorrow, just to make sure that before they really, open the floodgates to people again. It's kind of your read on it.
Yeah, just from my perspective, looking at some of the camera views we're seeing, it looks pretty clean. And I will be eager to go out and take a closer look once the road is open. Certainly hope that's later today, if not tomorrow morning. I really, I'm going to stick around for a little while and see if I can get a little closer view of the booster and see its condition firsthand. But the videos look like it's pretty clean. Obviously, SpaceX is going to want to, like you said, safe the vehicle. There may be a little bit of propellant left in the tank. Not much, probably, but they want to get that off the vehicle, I'm sure, and want to make sure there's no damage, or make sure the chopsticks have a firm grip on the booster as well, I presume, before opening the road again. But typically, we've seen the road open a few hours after the launch, and I don't really see anything right now that would lead me to believe it'll be any longer this time.
I am seeing a few comments around sort of suggesting, they'll probably put it back down on the
as we are
on the launch mount and stuff.
32
but I
minutes,
don't think
33
so.
seconds and counting. Again, watching the progress of the ship upper stage. Want to go ahead and bring in another replay. This vantage point, I believe, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, this is from another one of Lab Padre's cameras capturing the booster re-entry here. This is Rover 2. This was staged, as you can see, with Hopper in the foreground.
Oh, wow.
A nice bit of circular history here from the first to the present.
Geez, just seems so smooth.
Stephen, if you haven't already, let's go ahead and cycle this through again just to see that one more time, because we've got a nice angle on the chopsticks in this camera perspective. You can even see the shockwave as it was coming back through. It was quite remarkable.
Yeah, sure is. In the meantime, we have Starship cruising along fine, now well over 30 minutes into the flight. Everything is looking fine. SpaceX tweeted that out. All systems looking great. So we should be witnessing a nice entry here soon.
Yeah, we're poised for the next part of the show here and really getting a nice visual cavalcade of images from what you're seeing right here now live from the Starship upper stage. Just taking a look more closely, it doesn't appear as though any of the tiles are missing. Marcus, I'll let you be a second pair of eyes.
Yeah, interestingly, interestingly here in front of the camera view you'll see there's a couple of indented tile spots. You see 2 of them. I think there's actually 3. But there, I believe, the test tiles, I pointed them out in our video yesterday, but you'll see under there's 3 discolored tiles that look more grey. If you look closely, they're test tiles as well. And this is all those are on the payload bay area, so it's unpressurized. If they burn through, it doesn't really matter. So they've used those spots and spots at the bottom of the vehicle as little test spots to see if different versions of the heat shield will work or a lack of a heat shield will burn through fast. All these sorts of things that they can test on these areas of the vehicle that sort of aren't mission ending. You know, if it burns through in the payload bay, no big problem. If it burns through at the aft section there, just behind the engines, no problem either. In fact, they're not going to use the Raptor engines, the vacuum engines again on this vehicle, right? There's no deorbit burn here. It's already on a trajectory that's going to re-enter. So the only engines that are going to fire up are the 3 sea-level engines for the touchdown. So even if there's a burn through that takes out one of the vacuum Raptors, it doesn't matter. So they're using that opportunity to test different configurations of the heat shield tile, I believe. So yeah, a few people have pointed out, oh, there's tiles missing there. So no, they're not missing. They're just different ones. There's 6 of them. There was a nice close-up from Starship Gazer on that particular shot. If you want to check out his feed on X there's a great shot of exactly that spot.
I'll definitely take a look at that. Now, T plus 37 minutes, 19 seconds and counting on the SpaceX feed. 37 minutes, 32 seconds in real time. We are closing in on the beginning of entry now, just a little more than 10 minutes away. Stephen, I know that we're still very much in the middle of this mission, and it's almost like asking who's going to run in 2028 for president when we're, still casting votes in 2024. But thinking ahead to Flight 6 of Starship now, given that this very critical milestone seems to be about as successful as SpaceX could have wanted it, how do you think they're now thinking about the possibilities available to them in Flight 6? Since, there was a time around Flight 4 where they were thinking this catch would happen Flight 6, now would be that big push forward then. Do you think, possibly a relight of the Raptor engine on orbit is in order? Or do you think we're maybe going to see them try to put a payload on Starship? Do you think it's too soon for that?
I think it's probably too soon for a payload because I think they're going to want to demonstrate exactly what you said, a relight of the Raptor in space. They tried that a couple of missions ago, didn't happen. They aborted it before they even ignited because of, I think, the roll rate on the vehicle was out of spec. I think that is the next thing that I would be looking for, is a relight of Raptor, because I don't think they're going to want to put Starship in orbit, in low Earth orbit, until they can demonstrate they can bring it out of orbit, because Starship is huge and would create
That's
quite a remarkable piece of space debris if it was stranded up there, even for a short period of time. So I think SpaceX is going to want to demonstrate that they can bring it out of orbit and can guide it to a targeted reentry. And that, of course, requires the relight of the Raptors in space. I'm actually a little surprised that they haven't already tried to demonstrate that again. When we heard, I think in the May timeframe, that Flight 4 was not going to have a Raptor relight, that was a little surprising to a lot of people, because that seemed like a logical next step. But I think SpaceX prioritized recovering the booster, and the results are right in front of us here. That worked seemingly flawlessly today.
Well, and certainly I think SpaceX also didn't anticipate there being quite as much lag between flights 4 to 5 and then coming up to 6. So, the thought about, well, we can do less with 4 and then we'll just be on to flight 5, assuming it goes as well as we think it will. And then they ran into, of course, all the roadblocks we've talked about throughout the course of this broadcast, with some concerns and consideration to the sonic boom, some now resolved issues concerning the water deluge system, and some compliance that has now been rectified concerning some earlier flights of the Starship program. So now it seems like there's a rhythm that can be established, given that the launch license modification also cleared the way for a Flight 6. And it was interesting. I'm sure you poured through the emails from the FAA, Stephen, as well as all the documentation, and noted, and I'll bring this up here so I can read it verbatim. Bear with me as I'm calling an audible on myself and then was not ready for it. They said, and I quote from the FAA, the SpaceX Starship / Super Heavy Flight 5 license authorization also includes FAA approval of the Flight 6 mission profile. The FAA determined the changes requested by SpaceX for Flight 6 are within the scope of what had been previously analyzed. Any modifications requested by SpaceX to the approved Flight 6 scope of operations may require further FAA evaluation. And then they end, contact SpaceX for additional detail. So I'm eagerly listening in, as I'm sure, Stephen, you are, to the SpaceX broadcast as well, and Marcus, for any updates concerning Flight 6 trajectory and mission goals that may come out during this Starship operation here that is still very much in work.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's very much unlike SpaceX to not change something. They're going to have another goal with the next mission, right? Whether it be, pushing some more boundaries with the Starship side of things, doing a full orbit and then going into a deorbit burn and things like this. So there's going to be things that will change, I'm sure, and that will probably require some evaluation. I don't think that will take very long, because after they've pulled this off, it's like, well, look, I mean, I think anybody can agree that catching a huge booster out of the air has got some safety concerns around it, right? No matter how you look at it. So they were going to be very careful with that goal. But now that they've done that, almost every other goal that's coming, you would see as almost less significant, with the exception of a Starship catch. Starship catch is a bit more difficult, by the way, because it has to come in horizontally, and it needs to do its flip burn at the same time. So there's a bit more interesting sort of dynamics that you have to think of for that one, and it doesn't necessarily have the ability to come in and be scraped down the side like the booster can. So with the booster, if you sort of look back at the replay, the arms come in quite early on, and they sort of impact with the side of the booster, and they hold hard. So it would have been scraping right down there. It'd be interesting to see if there's audio of some of the noise of the scraping, but I reckon the engines are too loud to hear any of that. So yeah, look, I suspect there will be some updates for Flight 6 now that they've achieved this. But I would be surprised if we couldn't be 2 months away before flight. As far as we can see, there's nothing damaged anywhere. They've just recovered the booster, for goodness sake. Like, this is just incredible.
Yeah, no, all the footage, all the angles that we've got from this morning that are continuing to come in are just remarkable. And of course, we still have quite a bit of mission left to go. So to those of you who are still with us, or maybe you've gone away for some coffee or morning breakfast and are just popping back in or popping in for the first time, welcome aboard. You're watching joint live coverage between Lab Padre and Spaceflight Now, covering Starship Flight 5. If you haven't
Watching the
already,
live feed
as
there,
you're
we've got
popping-
some
Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
we've got some good descent going on there. You can sort of see the altitude dropping reasonably quickly, like, we're at 108, 107. It's not going to take long for this to tick down to reentry altitude. So we're coming up here very quickly.
Yeah, we're just a couple of minutes from that point in time. A little more than 45 minutes to flight from the SpaceX feed. Taking a look at some of the heat shield tiles that are being held up by the SpaceX commentators there. Examples of both the flat and curved variants there, by the looks of it. And as we've been talking through the morning, this is an upgraded version of the heat shield tiles versus what we saw fly on Flight 4. SpaceX continues to iterate on all elements of the Starship program, both on the rocket side as well as the ground side.
Here we go. Some entry heating coming on.
Yeah, you can start to see the plasma building, as Stephen was making sure I was noticing there. Appreciate that, Stephen. You can really see the pink hue building up as the plasma is getting more established here. Stephen, I'll bring you back in as we're starting to see Starship upper stage now making its entry back through the atmosphere. Stephen, just wanted to get your thoughts on this stage of flight. Obviously, we saw this once before with continuous views on the way down. What are you most keenly watching for with this element of the mission?
Yeah, I want to see what happens with the heat shield. It was pretty late in the entry, if I recall, on Flight 4 that we saw pieces of the heat shield, especially from one of the flaps, start to come off the vehicle. It was much later than this point in the entry, it seemed to be. So I'm interested to see in a few minutes' time, once it gets to a lower altitude, how the heat shield is holding up. But it is just remarkable that we're seeing all this live, as the Starship is sheathed in plasma through the Starlink network.
Well, I mean, to that point, it's kind of like an extended ad for the Starlink internet service. I mean, they've got the little bug at the top right-hand corner of the screen powered by Starlink. And, we saw this last time. And, if you own the rocket and you own the network and you own the dishes, why not plug your service and, flex its capabilities as we're more than likely just a few days away from the next Starlink launch from Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, it is remarkable to see it.
Might recall as well from the last flight, so the altitude starts sinking reasonably quickly, which it is at the moment, and then as there's more atmosphere, the Starship can actually start to use lift to stop its descent, not stop its descent, but slow its descent, so it can skim along the top of the atmosphere and wipe off as much velocity as it can before it actually drops into the thicker part of the atmosphere. And what we're seeing now is actually plasma from quite high in altitude. At this point, you see that the speed isn't dropping that fast, just ever so slightly. As it starts getting down towards the 45 kilometer mark, it'll start rapidly depleting, and that's when the real forces start hitting those those grid fins and the small intricate little curves that come up through each area. So hopefully this double thick heat shield is going to treat us much better than the last time we watched this. 26,000 kilometers an hour we're moving at the moment. So, we haven't knocked off a lot yet.
It's not over until the upper stage sings.
Absolutely. So what we were hoping to not see is tinges of green. Like we were seeing tinges of green quite early on in the entry last time, and that's sort of a sign that there's copper going missing or any number of parts of alloys going missing. So we're hoping to sort of see a fairly clean pink hue for a lot of this, I believe.
Yeah, so far the integrity of the ship is still holding strong, and now 71 kilometers in altitude and descending.
That double view there is something I don't think we've seen quite before. We've got a mirror of one of the flaps there.
Yeah, having both run simultaneously is, I think, going to be really interesting to watch, since we were seeing at a pretty close-up angle the breakup of part of the flap there last time. So hopefully we're not seeing any plasma pierce through that flap again this time. But obviously want to stress this is a test flight, and that's why SpaceX is launching and doing these missions, to be able to gauge where they are and where they still need to go.
Yeah. I'm intrigued about why we see those little bursts of sort of flame sort of erupt all of a sudden and then they disappear. I'm not sure exactly what causes that. I'd love to know, because we saw this in the last few flights as well. It doesn't seem like it's moving the fins in any way to sort of generate that effect. But every now and then you just get this little burst. I don't know if it's just a pocket of slightly thicker atmosphere or what's going on there. It's looking beautifully smooth right now. We've lost a couple of thousand kilometers per hour, down almost close to the 24,000 mark now, 69 kilometers in altitude.
Yeah,
you can sort of see the speeds dropping quite a bit quicker now.
I mean, you almost have to be just watching the telemetry data, the speedometer and the altitude monitor to really gauge motion, except for moments like that, because it's just such a smooth descent and it's such a consistent amount of plasma that's building up around it.
Could be that we're sort of seeing some discoloration in the steel there with the heat. The steel will sort of change to that sort of rainbow hue as soon as it starts heating up quite a bit. So that's all expected, of course. But
yeah.
At the moment, everything holding beautifully. Look how it's hovering there. That's 69 kilometers. So it's just kind of sitting there. It's not dropping anymore. So it's going to wipe off a lot at this sort of altitude, a few kilometers underneath. And as soon as it doesn't quite have the speed to keep that lift, then it's going to start sinking quite quickly again. I love trying to understand this re-entry profile, because it's quite unique. And the fact, as you say, the fact we get to see all this, and I haven't seen the frame rate drop, I don't think. We get to see all this because the Starlink dishes on the vehicle pointing upwards away from the plasma, and essentially the Starship is punching a gigantic hole through the atmosphere, letting that signal get out, something that has never been done before, apart from with the previous Starlink missions. So previous Starship missions, I should say. So this is something that still blows my mind, and Starlink it becomes stronger every week as they add more and more units to the shells. So it blows my mind that we can do this at the same time. And, that's an amazing project of its own, right?
Certainly is.
Just incredible what's changed over the past 5 years.
And just want to note that SpaceX says that the ship upper stage is continuing on a nominal trajectory. So in addition to visually looking good, it also is flying the path that SpaceX intended for it. So that's a good update there from SpaceX now. 3 minutes 30 or 42 seconds, counting into the mission.
See, we've only dropped 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers now since we last talked about it, and we've dropped another 1,000 kilometers per hour almost. So it can sort of hang up here and just slowly bleed off speed for quite a while. And every 1,000 kilometers it bleeds up here is a lot less energy when it hits the denser atmosphere below. So we're just starting to see the altitude drop a little faster again. Wow, that fin looks beautiful.
Yeah, to your earlier point, Marcus, I am very curious about the coloration on the flap that we're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen, if that's just a lighting effect of the plasma, or if that's, a heat impact from the plasma itself, sort of how that's all playing together.
I'd really like to see a full screen view of the flap there, to be honest. I want to see that higher res view of it.
Yeah, it sounds like they're beginning to thermally condition the Raptor engines before they get ready to perform their landing burn now, nominally 10 minutes from now.
Yeah. Speed dropping really, really quick now. 61 kilometers. As soon as we sort of pass down through towards 50, it starts really coming off fast. Seeing some little sparks coming off, which can be an indicator of just some little pieces of metal getting hit. But they're hopefully just sort of, hard edges on various things.
Down to the 60 kilometers.
Yeah, Marcus, I was trying to recall exactly when, as far as height elevation, where we really started to see the break apart of the flap, and that really started.
It's funny you say that. I'm literally trying to find that right now because I think it was down around the 45 kilometer mark. I'm just trying to find it.
That sounds about right.
It might have been right around here. I'm just scrubbing through. It looks like it was more like 55. So we're coming up to that point where if we were going to see the same burn through, it's going to happen right about now-ish.
Which is certainly
it's
a good
definitely
sign
a lot more energetic. I'm not seeing any green, though. We were seeing bursts of green in the last one earlier on, and I'm not seeing that this time.
Yeah, and we just heard that max heating has occurred, that as the vehicle is passing through max Q.
Oh, look, there's another flap area there. Couple of angles, 3 angles there. Don't see any burn through anywhere.
It almost looks like a mirror image.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Peak heating.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't lose really any frame rates during peak heating is, again, another testament to something else SpaceX is trying to exemplify, which is the stalwartness of the Starlink system that they've got on board this Starship flight. Now 55 kilometers in altitude, speed about to pass below 15,000 kilometers per hour. T plus 58 minutes, 14 seconds and counting into this mission on the SpaceX feed. T plus 58 minutes, 29 seconds.
There's a bit of a bright spot there on the flap in front of us. Hopefully it'll hold through okay. I mean, it's going to be quite normal for things to heat up to glowing temperatures, so hopefully we don't see a burn through. It's looking a little bit burned through there, though. I think that forward flap might be going.
The one at the top of the screen.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely
looks-
burned through, I think.
There does seem to be a little bit of heat coming through the middle of that flap. See those two pockets of orange glow.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yep. I
That's
see those
definitely not what
sparks.
definitely not what they wanted there. But I mean, it's holding together better. But there's going to need to be work done there. Obviously, it's a hard part of the vehicle because you're trying to have all the actuators doing their thing whilst having it fully shielded. See the back, the aft flaps don't seem to be suffering the same thing. So the forward flaps must be tricky. And, this is why they've moved them, right? So the Block 2 Starship, those flaps have moved. So this probably is a problem that's already fixed in a future vehicle, right? So I think they kind of expect this. They've probably beefed this up, obviously, because it's doing better. But there's certainly room for improvement there.
Marcus, key in on that point. How different are the forward flaps on the version 2 Starship than what we're seeing fly right now?
Well, they're actually moved more towards the leeward side of the vehicle, so they're not quite in harm's way exactly where they are right now. So if you sort of imagine, they just shift more towards the silver side of the vehicle, the unshielded side of the vehicle. So that's going to help, and they're also just designed slightly differently. They've got a slight different profile on them, so hopefully that'll help. I mean, they're holding up a lot better. We're down under 8,000 kilometers per hour at this point, down under 40 kilometers in altitude. So, well, they are starting to toast right up there right now, though. Aft flaps looking great. And the heat shield in general is looking pretty good.
Down to 75 kilometers.
Vehicles pass through maximum entry dynamic pressure now with just about 7,000 kilometers to go, a little more than an hour into flight. And as we've been talking, we're seeing some noticeable, even more so, burn through of that forward flap. But hopefully, as we're thinking possibly the body of the vehicle as well, though we're watching to see any additional signs for that.
Yeah, I mean, some burn through there, but I mean, the last ones, the fins were basically hanging off at this point, so a certain improvement. And hopefully the actuators and all the mechanisms inside that flap are still working. I'm assuming that the other flap was probably in a similar condition. They'd be fairly uniform. We wasn't seeing the other flap, so...
Yeah, but you'd have to imagine that that's more than likely the case.
I'd say so. The forces would be pretty uniform over the whole thing. It'd be interesting to see what the camera views look like at this point. And I imagine, even though there was burn through, nothing was hanging off. The aerodynamics should have been holding up pretty good. The shielding on it seemed pretty good right through from the other angles.
Yeah.
It's obviously dark on this side of the world. This is closer to me coming in here now. For me, it's like 12:30 past midnight, so quite dark on this side of the planet as it comes in close to Western Australia.
Yeah, just given the trajectory and where it's set to splash down, would it be bright enough if you were on the actual coastline of Western Australia to be able to see any of this, or is it just too far off for
It's still a long way out. Yeah, still a long way out. I have to sort of see how far out from the coastline it is, but yeah, maybe you'd be able to see a little sign of it from high up. There's the flap. There's an aft flap there. Yeah, it's just dark, I think.
Yeah. Vehicles now subsonic, now 1 hour, 3 minutes, 11 seconds into flight. We're coming up on the landing flip in the next 2 minutes.
It's amazing how slowly it drops at this point. Like it's really almost floating in the atmosphere, gently down when you sort of really look at that. Look at the speed drop, like it's just almost hanging there. It's barely dropping at all.
It's performing the belly flop maneuver.
Yep, coming down horizontally.
Standing by for the flip and then the landing burn.
Yeah, you'll actually see the speed just almost stop there, almost stop in its descent. So you can see why it needs such little fuel to land, because it comes right down to 500 kilometers per hour compared to the booster, which comes down much, much faster.
Exactly.
500 kph right there. Oh, geez, I want to see an engine camera.
We're just listening into SpaceX commentator just here for an update.
Saw the high altitude campaign. That's the unique thing about how Starship comes back. So we've bled off pretty much all of the speed we're going to. We're essentially at terminal velocity.
Starship is
Vehicle
at
remains on
and
target
then
at this
remains on
point
target.
for SpaceX commentator on the loop.
Five to go.
Yeah,
Coming up
I
soon.
imagine
Landing
they're
burn.
much more precise in the
Yep.
control looks really nice.
Cruising into the landing flip and the landing burn here in the next several seconds. This should all happen very quickly. We've got views of this.
1 kilometer.
Approaching landing burn startup.
And here we go.
When the Raptor engines ignite.
I think that
if we are
altitude
unable to see
readout
that
needs some work.
illumination ourselves.
It sort of hits zero
Landing burn
well
startup.
before when it starts burning. Look at that.
That's a nice reflection of the engine burn. And it looks like a correct orientation for a splashdown.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's still got camera feed. It's wow. Oh, what have they got there? It just blew up. They've got a camera. They've got a boat out there,
Oh, wow.
or a buoy or something. Wow. I want to see that. I want to see the camera from that.
I have to imagine that's a buoy. That they
Yeah,
wouldn't
it must
put
be, yeah.
a crewed boat that close to splashdown.
Oh, I thought there might have been an autonomous type vehicle out there of some sort.
But if you just think about, as Stephen was saying in my ear, the fact that they had an aquatic asset that close to where it's splashing down, and it's making its approach to it now, that tells you another point of data about just the sheer amount of accuracy that SpaceX has with this whole operation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was exactly on target. They wouldn't be there otherwise. How about that? She's just broken in half. Look,
And the fact that
look. You can see the downcomer hanging out.
Wow.
So that's the pipeline feeding from the methane tank normally down into the aft section. So the aft section of the ship's just floating there, unless it's upside down and I'm looking at it the wrong way.
Well, you have to wonder now if this is in a position where they might be able to salvage any of the ship, given that they've got eyes on it so
you never know.
definitively.
Jeez, this has been quite the day. Apart from a little bit of burn through that they'll obviously improve with the already modified ship, this has just been a perfect mission.
Well, and just to note, as we're looking back at the orbital launch mount, you've still got the super heavy booster suspended as intended. So
Yeah.
It's just been, I think, nothing short of a spectacular success of a day for SpaceX. And of course, NASA has to be both thoroughly impressed and very pleased with how this mission has performed, and what this portends for the Artemis program and the ability for SpaceX to continue making iterative steps towards the rapid reuse and the increased flight cadence that'll be necessary for an on-orbit propellant transfer demonstration.
Yeah.
I think everyone's just got to be just over the moon, if you will, about this morning.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of the bigger challenges coming up, the propellant transfer from one vehicle to another, and those systems sort of need to kind of still be Yeah, well, I'm sure they're planned, but we haven't really seen much about how they're going to do it exactly. But you know, that it all seems like small issues compared to what they've just achieved. Honestly, like, if they can do that, they can refill. Just incredible. I almost wonder, like, they've achieved so much. I almost wonder whether they're going to skip and almost go straight to like the first, Starship version 2, because they've just achieved so much. It's like, well, what are they going to, apart from maybe do some deorbit burns and things like that? What are they going to achieve with the next booster that's currently in line, the next ship that's currently in line? The real changes are in the sec. Oh wow! Look at that shot from the tower. Did you see that?
That's amazing.
Oh, it was so smooth. Like, it just sort of impacts just so lightly. It's literally like they've done it 100 times.
Yeah, that drone shot right there. That's pretty spectacular.
I've got the Mechazilla.
It wouldn't be a SpaceX stream without the moonwalk by Mechazilla.
Yeah.